Hi, and welcome to this quick video where we're just going to take a look at a couple of tips to do with VST plugins, etc. So the first one applies not only to VST plugins but actually to nearly all the controls in the mixer and the inspector in Cubase, which is often you find it's a little difficult to get exactly the setting you want, particularly with things such as filters and so on. Adjusting the knobs on any VST instrument can be a little tricky. Now, if you hold down the Shift key, your accuracy will be much greater, so you've got to move the mouse much further for the same amount of control movement, which makes things much easier. And it's exactly the same here, so you can see here if I move this, obviously I've got a pretty much one-to-one relationship there. If I hold down Shift, you can see my mouse has had to move much further to get the same amount of control, so that allows you to really be precise about these moves without having to necessarily resort to typing things in. Now, the other thing is to do with plugin management. Now, this has become much more important with the advent of Cubase 9, because you may have some old favourite VST plugins which are 32-bit knocking around. Certainly people are still making them with SynthEdit and this, that and the other. So a lot of free plugins are 32-bit, and holding on to them can be worthwhile, but you need to organize things perhaps a little better than you used to. So the way that I've got my system organized, I'm just going to take you through it very quickly, is like this. So I have two categories. I've got free plugins and I've got paid plugins. So this means that if somebody wants to says to me, I need a load of free plugins, then providing the license doesn't prohibit it, then I can just give them the free plugin folder without doing anything silly with any of the plugins that I've paid for. But we have two categories really now. We've got ones which are native 64-bit, and then we've got ones which need to be bridged with something like JBridge. This means that sometimes I want to run 64-bit only, and then I will just set Cubase to just use those. Other times I will want to have the bridge plugins as well, although that's becoming increasingly small now. Really, there's only 2 or 3 plugins that I really need which are bridge. So the way it's actually organized is in this folder here I have my original 32-bit plugins, and then here we have the JBridged DLLs which link to that, and then here are the proper 64-bit plugins. So all the native 64-bit stuff is in here, and the possibly a little less reliable and definitely sometimes more awkward bridge plugins are here, and the same goes for the ones that I've bought. So got exactly the same deal here, although nearly all of the plugins that I've bought are actually 64-bit available natively now. There's only a couple I can think of which aren't. So moving like that, and then obviously that means that you would then end up, if you go to Cubase and Plugin Manager, the slightly awkward window at the bottom. So this window here, which is where you show those. So you end up with multiple different plugin folders in here. So if I was going to run the bridged free plugins in this instance of Cubase that I've got, then I would add that. I would click add and then go and find that, etc., and so on. So then I would put those bridge plugins, and the same would go for the other ones I've bought. But this is actually, I've got 2 instances of Windows on here, and I don't put these ones on because the copy protection generally doesn't play nicely with being used from 2 different setups. So that's why they're not in here. But I would put those bridge ones in here, and then it would rescan them, maybe blacklist some of them. And talking of blacklists, this is much better than it used to be. You used to have to look up an XML file and edit the file. So you can see here there are 3 things. A VST, which I was told was 64-bit, which isn't, so it's rejected it for that reason. And then we've got these 2 here which have been rejected for reasons which are unknown. And fortunately, I have the VST3 version, which is working fine. So it's just a case of looking around as to why those things don't work. But hopefully that should allow you to edit your plugins and also arrange them a little more neatly and get on top of that.